Shalom. I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you regarding the efforts by France to sponsor an international peace conference to support the two-state solution regarding the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. And it is as follows. France has submitted a document to the 15 Security Council members indicating that it intends to convene an international peace conference in April to advance Israeli-Palestinian peace efforts to support a two-state solution. It would include representatives from the Middle East Quartet, that is the United States, Russia, the European Union, and the United Nations, and several Arab states. The goal of the International Peace Conference is that the Palestinians and Israel would engage in direct negotiations in July. Palestinians welcomed the French proposal. Hassam Zomlet, an advisor to Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, said, "We definitely welcome the French initiative. We see it as a major possibility for challenging the status quo." Zomlet, however, said that the Palestinians insisted on their call for a United Nations resolution against Israeli settlement building ahead of any renewed peace process. "Nothing will convince us that we should not go to the United Nations Security Council over the building of Israeli settlements," declared Zomlet. Recently, the Palestinian Authority has been trying to advance a resolution in the UN Security Council that will condemn Israeli settlements in the West Bank and declare them illegal under international law and an obstacle to peace. Senior Palestinian and Israeli officials say that the Palestinian Authority has been in contact with France, Spain, and Egypt, who are all members of the UN Security Council, to get them to draw up such a resolution and to also support it. Several weeks ago, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki visited France, where he met with French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius and discussed submitting such a UN resolution. In addition, Maliki visited Egypt and discussed the move with the Egyptian Foreign Minister. Egypt recently became a member of the UN Security Council. They are one of the 10 rotating members of the Council. While in Egypt, Maliki also met with Saudi Foreign Minister Adel al-Jabir and updated him on his discussions with Fabius in France. Maliki asked Jabir to pressure France to advance the resolutions in the Security Council. At the same time, PLO Executive Committee Secretary Saeb Erekat met with Arab League Secretary General Nabil El-Arabi to begin discussing a draft resolution that would get Arab support. In addition, Maliki was in Spain to discuss a possible UN resolution with the Spanish Foreign Minister. Senior Israeli diplomats who recently visited France said that the message that they got from senior French Foreign Ministry officials was that no decision has been made on submitting a UN Security Council resolution, neither on the settlements nor on principles for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Senior Israeli officials also noted that they fear that U.S. President Barack Obama may not veto a UN resolution on the Israeli-Palestinian issue in the Security Council during his final year in office, particularly given the increasing U.S. criticism of Israeli settlement building in the West Bank. However, Palestinian Authority Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki explicitly rejected the possibility of renewed direct negotiations with Israel ever. Malki pledged to never again engage with Israel in direct negotiations toward a final status agreement. He said, "We will never go back and sit again in direct Israeli-Palestinian negotiations." France is placing the burden of reaching a settlement on Israel. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said that his country would recognize a Palestinian state if its efforts in the coming weeks to try to break the deadlock between the Israelis and the Palestinians fail. France will engage in the coming weeks in a preparation of an international conference bringing together the parties and their main partners, the United States, European, and Arab countries, notably to preserve and make happen the solution of two states, Fabius said. Israel Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nashon said France's ambassador to Israel met a ministry official to discuss the details of the planned conference. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected France's diplomatic plan, calling for an international conference on Middle East peace with recognition of a Palestinian state if those talks fail. Netanyahu called it mystifying and counterproductive, arguing that it gives the Palestinians no incentive to compromise. The plan said says that we will hold an international conference, but if it doesn't succeed, we are deciding in advance what the consequences will be, and that is to recognize a Palestinian state. This, of course, Netanyahu said, ensures in advance that the conference will fail, because if the Palestinians know that their demands for a Palestinian state will be accepted, they don't need to negotiate at an international conference, Netanyahu said. Netanyahu reiterated Israeli policy that peace will only come as a result of direct bilateral talks between the two sides. The United States has not taken a public position on the French plan. Nonetheless, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has warned that Israel is headed toward a one-state solution and that the Palestinian Authority could collapse. Kerry warned that he believes that Israel is headed toward becoming a unitary state that is an impossible entity to manage, and warned that such a reality could lead to Israel becoming like a big fortress and strengthen groups like Hezbollah. Kerry said, "The alternative is you sit there and things just get worse. There will be more Hezbollah. There will be more rockets, and they'll all be pointed in one direction, and there will be more people on the border. And what happens then? You're going to be one big fortress. I mean, that's not a way to live. It seems to me that it is far more intelligent and far more strategic, which is an important word here, to have a theory of how you're going to preserve the Jewish state and be a democracy and a beacon to the world that everyone envisioned when Israel was created." Asked if he could imagine an end to the state of Israel, Kerry replied, "No, I don't believe that that's going to happen. It's just, what is it going to be like is the question. Will it be a democracy? Will it be a Jewish state? Or will it be a unitary state with two systems? Or some draconian treatment of Palestinians? Because to let them vote would be to dilute the Jewish state. I don't know. I have no answer to that. But the problem is, neither do they. Neither do the people who are supposed to be providing answers to this. It is not an answer to simply continue to build in the West Bank and to destroy the homes of other folks you're trying to make peace with and to pretend that that's a solution." Kerry said that the distrust between Israel and the Palestinians has never been more profound, and that Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas feels great despair, more than I have ever heard him. Kerry said that the two-state solution must not become a slogan, warning that current trends are leading to a one-state reality. "We have to be honest about what a one-state solution looks like," Kerry said, adding, "The one-state solution is no solution at all for a Jewish, democratic Israel living in peace." At the same time, Kerry said that violence must stop in order to achieve peace, and said that Israel has the right and the obligation to defend itself. Palestinian leadership should stop the incitement and condemn terror attacks against Jewish civilians. In response to Kerry's comments, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "The only workable solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not a unitary state, but a demilitarized Palestinian state that recognizes the Jewish state." He added that the root cause of the conflict with the Palestinians is their refusal to recognize the Jewish state, and that while settlements and territory are an issue to be resolved, they are not the core of the conflict. Netanyahu said that recent events disproved the claim that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was at the heart of turmoil in the Middle East. That was never true, but now it's demonstrably false. He cited a recent statement by Palestinian Authority head Mahmoud Abbas, according to which Israel has been occupying Arab land for 67 years, referring to the creation of Israel in 1948. He asked if Abbas meant by this that Tel Aviv, too, was occupied Arab land. Netanyahu said, "President Abbas refuses to address his people and say it's over. No more claims after a peace deal," the Prime Minister said. "The Palestinians have not been willing to cross the emotional and conceptual bridge of a state next to Israel, not one instead of Israel. Not just Hamas, but also the Palestinian Authority. They refuse to accept a Jewish state for the Jewish people." Meanwhile, UN Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power and Dan Shapiro, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, were in Israel to discuss the peace process. While in Israel, Samantha Power spent time with Israeli United Nations envoy Danny Danon for a countrywide tour of Israel to understand Israel's complex security situation. Following a helicopter tour of the country, Power and Danon were briefed by senior Israeli army officials on the security challenges facing Israel. In doing so, the ambassadors, joined by U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro, then headed south for an in-depth briefing by Israeli security officials regarding Israel's border with the Gaza Strip, following which they met with representatives on the border communities to hear about their daily lives under the threat of rocket fire and Palestinian terrorist attacks from the Gaza Strip. At their meeting, Israel President Reuven Rivlin emphasized that a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot be imposed by outside powers. He called for direct negotiations between Israel and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Rivlin said, "The conflict between us, the tragedy between us, can only be solved through direct negotiations," said Rivlin. "No solution can be imposed on either side, and we must negotiate to come to a common understanding. In any event, the idea of an international conference has not been generating much enthusiasm in the international community. For example, in a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, German Chancellor Angela Merkel indicated that she would turn down the pressure on Israel to push for a diplomatic process with the Palestinian Authority, saying, 'Now is not the time for a significant step toward a two-state solution.'" In 2008, then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert offered to agree to the creation of an independent Palestinian state, including all the Gaza Strip, nearly all the West Bank, and parts of Israel, whose area would be equal to 99.5% of the size of the West Bank. In addition, a tunnel would connect the West Bank to the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian state would have its capital in eastern Jerusalem. Not only that, Olmert also agreed to the return of 5,000 Arab refugees from the 1948 War of Independence over 5 years. Abbas said that in September of 2008, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert presented him with a map that defined the borders of a proposed Palestinian state. Abbas was asked, "In the map that Olmert presented to you, Israel would annex 6.3% of the West Bank and compensate the Palestinians with 5.8% of land from pre-1967 Israel. And what did you propose in return?" Abbas said, "I did not agree. I rejected it out of hand." Olmert has said that Abbas said at the time, "I am not in a marketplace or a bazaar. I came to define the borders of Palestine, the June 4th, 1967 borders, without detracting a single inch, or without detracting a single stone from Jerusalem, or from the holy Christian and Muslim places. That is why the Palestinian negotiators did not agree to the Israeli proposal." U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's special envoy, Frank Lowenstein, said that Kerry would persist with the Israelis and the Palestinians until the end of his time in office, proclaiming, "The window for a two-state solution is closing, though none of us who've worked on it will regret that we tried to save it." As a result, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is worried that the Obama administration will use its final months in office to back a UN Security Council resolution and other measures detrimental to Israel. Netanyahu's concern about possible Obama administration decisions was focused on the period between November of 2016, when a new president is elected in the United States, and January 2017, when that newly elected president takes office. Given the history of difficult relations between the two countries' leaderships, this period would constitute a brief window when the Obama administration could advance its agenda without political concerns in the United States. In order to try to ensure that the Obama administration does not do this, Israel is presently trying to take steps which will improve the Palestinian economy. Well, that's going to conclude this week's report, where we shared with you the efforts by France to sponsor an international peace conference to support a two-state solution regarding the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. It was proposed that the initial meeting would be in April, followed by direct negotiations in July. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.